Hello and welcome to this edition of Turnaround Marriage. And this is for the men out there. This is for those men who realize that they've not been leading their home, not been leading spiritually the way that God has called them to. They know that they have that mantle of leadership, and they've really been stuck for a long time because they realize the more the time has gone by, the harder it is to pick up again that mantle that God has given to you. If that's you, this is exactly the place you need to be today, because we're going to talk about why it is that you're stuck. And a lot of that is not your fault. Some of it's the circumstances, but then also help you to realize what needs to happen in order to pick up that mantle that God has given to you. And so we're excited to dive in about that subject that is so important now more than ever.
Yes. So gentlemen, thanks for joining us. And, if your wife is prickly, if she's been nagging you, if she's been getting after you and begging you to lead her, to pray with her, to, whatever it is, do this, do that. And the more she does that, the more you're shirking back and realizing you're such a failure. You've been doing it wrong and you can't do it. We are here to tell you you're not alone. There are so many men out there, and our belief is that the enemy of your soul has a huge target on your back. It is on your back, the backs of honorable, godly husbands who love their wives, love their family, but they have bought into the lie that they can't lead. Their wife is more spiritual than them. She knows the Bible better. So let's go ahead and let her take the lead, right? And we're here to tell you, if you're stuck there, I am sure you are beating yourself up. You are feeling bad, and you're staying stuck in that cycle of, I guess I'm just going to let her keep leading me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so glad you shared that, because what we see, and we've been working with hundreds of couples that we've talked to, worked with hundreds of couples, what we have seen, there is this pattern of what happens a lot of times, not always, but it kind of looks like this, where marriage begins to struggle to some degree. Life is happening. They're not sure about getting on the same page about the losses or struggles. And the husband, he's feeling kind of disconnected. He feels like a bit of a failure because his marriage isn't what it should be. And so he begins to feel guilty and feel yucky, and he begins to disconnect because he knows that he's a bit of a failure because he's not leading the marriage and the home the way that he should. And so the wife begins to she doesn't have the same mantle on her shoulders as the man does. And she begins to lean into the Lord in her frustration. She tends to go to the Word of God a lot more. She tends to pray a lot more. And so we see this over and over everywhere, to the point now that women are taking over in their homes. They're taking over in the church too. And it's because men are stuck in these cycles, these vicious cycles, where they are feeling like they're failures. And to some degree, they're becoming self-fulfilling prophecies too. And so they're pushing away their wife. They're pushing away accountability, pushing away connection with the church, and more than anything else, they're pushing away God. So what are you to do if you find yourself in a situation like that? And to some degree, I was at that place at one point when I was a pastor, because things weren't good between us. And it's not a fun place to be for the wife or for the husband, is it?
No, because if there is a void of leadership, guess what? The wife is going to step into that void. She is going to go ahead and, well, if he's not going to, I will. And when she steps into that void, secretly and underneath, she's resenting you. She's disappointed with you. She's now treating you with disrespect. So now the cycle is full circle, because you're feeling even more like a failure. You're feeling even more disrespected. So why even bother trying? You'll go probably to your numbing mechanisms or your coping mechanisms and scrolling or disconnecting or drinking or just checking it out on TV and just numbing out, because why bother? You're a failure anyway. And we're here to tell you, if those are the types of tapes that have been running in your head for years and years and years, you have to do something about it to rewire your thinking. This is not going to fix itself.
Yeah, and you're so right. And it becomes like this insurmountable mountain. The more the time has gone by, the further out it seems to be. And guys, we're here to tell you, it's not entirely your fault. And when I say that, there's a number of reasons why. First of all, maybe you weren't given that good example. It's very likely that it was passed down from generations even, where your dad or even your grandfathers were not leading the way that they should have in the home, or maybe your mom or your grandmother were like the matriarch and they led everything, and that's absolutely what happens a lot of the time. What else happens?
Yeah, well, that's a big one. Or maybe your dad wasn't even there. You grew up in a home where it was just you and your mom and your siblings, and she was having to figure things out without a husband and without a provider and a leader. And so you saw her step into that role. And so again, that void, it makes it easy for you to have that same void in your home. And we tend to repeat the same things that happened to us when we were growing up and make them even worse. The other problem we see really is right now, the culture. The culture is so against male leadership. It's so against this idea of patriarchy. It's so against this idea of men stepping into the role of leadership, because maybe there has been, maybe because there's been abuse, there's been this poorly done. So now we're going to throw the whole thing out, and it's feminism, and we need to rise up, and it's our rights, and it's this and that. And guys, we're here to say the way God designed it. God did not design us women to carry this heavy mantle. He designed it for you, gentlemen. Yeah. But if the enemy of your soul is after you, and he's lying to you and telling you that you're a failure and a fraud and you can't, and your wife is going to lead instead of you, I know you're beating yourself up. I know you're disconnecting from your wife. I know you're not showing up as the husband she needs. And so she's going to continue to press your buttons. She's going to nag you. She's going to say things under her breath, be passive aggressive, and, use sarcasm or whatever hurtful words she can, because deep down she's desperate for you to step up into that role. And we're here to say there's some inner work that needs to happen in order for you to do that, because you don't just one day go, well, I guess I'll lead and be that strong, confident husband and father that I'm supposed to be.
It's so true. And I was speaking to a man not that long ago, maybe a month or so ago. And we were talking about stepping to the plate in terms of leadership. And he's like, I know I need to do these things. And then he's like, well, I don't want to be like misogynistic or anything like that. I'm like, stop it. Stop it. Because what we're talking about here is you are stepping into that role that God has given to you. There's too much nonsense. We've been listening as Christians way too much to what the culture programs us to say and to think and to believe. And is there any mistake that the family is eroding in our culture? Is it any mistake that the culture itself is eroding because of the family? And so we've got to go back to God's design, both as Christian people, but also as a culture, for God's design for marriage, the way that he has designed things to be. And it is for the man to be the spiritual leader of the home. And so, of course, that's where the evil one is going to attack the most of all. Or most. So what we would want to say is, you're out there today and you're listening, and you know in your heart of hearts, man, I don't have to convince you. You know it. To what degree you've not been leading, you know in your heart of hearts that this is what God has called you to. We don't have to debate it. If you're a Christian, you know this is true because you've read the Bible. And if you're out there today and you're feeling the overwhelm and like, I haven't been doing it, I've been shirking my responsibilities. Guys, I talk to men like that all of the time. If you're out there today, I want to tell you, first of all, there's hope. There is hope. But do not be mistaken that the time is flying by. How many more summers, how many more years do you have with your kids until they're out of your house? How much more so do you want to make sure that you're not wasting this time with your family? And how much more is day by day your wife becoming more resentful?
Yeah.
It's not getting better. So what has to happen?
Yeah, it's most likely getting worse. Yeah. And we're not just talking about spiritual leadership too. We're also talking about that emotional connection, to be able to lead your wife emotionally, to be able to pursue her heart and connect with her, to be able to make sure she knows that she's cherished and pursued. If she's been nagging you and she's been stepping into that void, most likely now we want to pull back even away from her, and we want to avoid her, and we want to kind of dismiss that. And so that again widens the gap here. And so, yes, you're right. Like, time is flying away. So many people reach out to us once they become empty nesters because they're like, well, we stuck it out for the kids, and now what do we have? We have this big gap of men who are not leading, wives who are bossy, prickly, because they're desperate to have their needs met, and you're not doing it. And so they do it the only way they know how to connect with you, is to push your buttons, right?
Yeah.
And so here's the thing. We want to help you not only recognize that if your deep resentment for your wife has been seething, and if her deep resentment for you has been seething and building over the years, this is a 911 emergency type situation, because we're here to tell you resentment always grows its roots of bitterness into your heart, and then unforgiveness, and then hardness of heart. And there's that breaking point, that tipping point where it's like the hard becomes so hard that there's no turning back, right? So this is like, if you're sensing the Spirit of God as we're talking here, and you're like, I know I need to, but I just can't. I'm such a failure. I don't know what to do. Number one, we want to tell you, do not believe the lies. Yeah. The lies of our culture that say you're too much. You need to be in your place. Don't oppress your wife or whatever. Of course, don't oppress her. Lead her gently. Don't believe the lies that patriarchy is some kind of evil thing. This is God's design. It's a beautiful headship, mantleship. I am so happy to be under his authority and leadership, because because he's a gentle leader. He's kind and tenderhearted toward me. I want to get under that, because as a wife, I don't want that umbrella of safety. It is a place of safety for me. So we're here to tell you, don't believe the lies that this umbrella you carry is just somehow, some kind of it's wrong, or it's too much, or you can't do it. Right. Those are all lies.
Right. And that's so spot on. The other lie that is really behind the scenes is the lie that the many lies that the evil one is speaking to you, that are keeping you stuck, that you're not enough, that you're not good enough. And to some degree, those are true. You're not, but the Lord in you, the Lord, what he's accomplished for you it makes you more than enough. And plus, more than anything else, he's the one that's giving you that mantle. Whether you've been abiding in that or stepping into that role or not, that's another question. But do not believe the lies that you were not meant to lead your wife, because the Lord brought the two of you together. And so he didn't do that for you to sit on your hands. Of course not. But don't believe the lies of the evil one that nothing can change. Don't believe him when he says that your wife is smarter than you, or knows the Bible more than you, or prays more than you, and therefore you can't lead. Which, by the way, does it matter that much if the husband, from a woman's perspective, I'd love to hear you speak to it. Does it matter that much if he doesn't know as much as her about the Bible?
That is so secondary to being led, and to being fed, and to being spiritually cared for. You know what I mean? It is so secondary. And, many wives out there are desperate for leadership. And so they're going to the Lord. And like you said earlier, they're already digging in, because they want that so badly. Mm-hmm. And so the natural process is they are going to know the word more. But that does not mean they don't want you to lead them. Right. They desperately want you to lead them. And they probably don't know how to articulate that. They're just so frustrated that they are having to fill in this gap, that they're having to step into that void. And they're resentful toward you for not being able to do it. And they frankly don't think you're man enough. And that's the thing that they're telling themselves in the back of their mind, that they don't want to really admit. Yeah. So
that's so good that you shared that. And I hope that in itself gives men some hope out there. So let me share with you what you need to do. First of all, you need to stop believing the lies, as we've just said. Number two, it's time for action. Like your wife might, if you say, "Hun, can we pray tonight?" She might be like, "What?" She might be really surprised by that, but she's not going to be mad. She's not going to be upset. She's going to be like, maybe mind blown, but she's not going to hold it against you. Of course she won't.
She might say, "What do you want?"
Yeah, that's true. She might be a little apprehensive.
If it's out of character.
Yeah, but taking action is super important, especially if it's been a long time. And really right along with that, guys, is we were not meant to do this life alone. And yes, he gave you to each other, but I do believe men need to be iron sharpening iron with each other. And so you need accountability, connection, and support. At bare minimum, you need to be connected with other men in your church or in your community, where they're just calling you to a better standard, encouraging you in the path. But many of you out there are realizing that even if we have that, like I've got a men's group that I can go to, you're realizing that there has been damage that has taken place. It's been a long time that you haven't been leading. Many of you are out there realizing that there is a growing divide that's happened, and you need some real healing in your own heart or in your marriage, or both. Usually they all go hand in hand. If that is you, if you're recognizing these are deep-seated patterns that go back, not just for me, but even back generations, we're here to tell you that you need to reach out and get support. You really need to reach out and get help. And so what I'd encourage you to do is we offer a free breakthrough call where, guys, what we do is get on the phone with you and talk about what is not working in your marriage right now, help you to get clarity around that. Where are those places you've not shown up the way that you should have? And then we're not going to just stay there. We're going to also craft a dream with you. We're going to, but God says, without a vision, my people perish. And what would it look like to have a vision for the future, for you, for leadership, for your home? And then we're going to talk about a real strategy to get from where you've been to where you dreamed that it could be. And if we're a great fit for working together, we'll talk about that. If not, we're going to point you in the very best direction. Either way, my friends, you're going to get that clarity. So what we want you to encourage you to do is go to turnaroundmarriage.com/call, pick a time, fill out that short questionnaire, and we'll hop on the phone with you. I think we've got maybe a couple slots left this week. Things do book up pretty quick.
Yeah. And if your wife has been nagging you and telling you and talking to you and saying, we've got to get some help, let's get some counseling, let's get some, whatever it is, therapy, whatever you think you need, we're here to tell you transformational Christian coaching is a totally different way to do it.
Yes.
She would be so thrilled if you said, hey, there's a phone call we can make. We can reach out. Scott and Rachel, they help Christians. And I know I haven't been leading you the way that you've been needing to. And I feel awful about it. And I'm sick and tired of it. And I'm ready to do something about it. Would you get on this call with me? And if she's not even willing, hey, listen, you need to take the step. Take that first step of the mantle leadership and go ahead and book that call. Go to turnaroundmarriage.com/call. Book that time that you can set aside, block it, put a reminder in, and be distraction free on that call. Be ready to take notes and be ready to take action so that you can be that leader that your wife has been begging the Lord for, right?
Yeah.
And we're here to say it's possible. You can do it. You might need some help.
Absolutely. And men, how many of you out there played sports? How many of you had coaches that didn't just sit there and whisper sweet nothings to you? Mm-hmm. Guys, you probably don't need a counselor that's going to be Stuart Smalley to you and tell you how wonderful and sweet you are. Guys, what you need is a coach that's going to kick your rear end and encourage you and love you and serve you. And this is going to resonate with some people out there. I don't know who. I'm telling you, if you probably don't need counseling, you probably need a coach that's going to help you to pick up that mantle of leadership with that encouragement and accountability and love. And love that's going to look like a kick in the rear end sometimes, because that's exactly what we oftentimes need as men. So we're here to serve you. Until next time, we're Scott and Rachel, and we'll talk to you then.
Bye-bye.